If you think your dog knows you're just being loud when you raise your voice, you are dangerously wrong. What happens inside their brain in that split second is not what you think. It's darker, it's primal, and it changes how they see you forever. You love your dog. You'd never hurt them. But in that moment when frustration boils over and your voice jumps an octave, you aren't communicating. You are triggering a biological event that overrides every bit of training you've ever done. Think about it. Why does your dog sometimes cower when you're angry, even if you've never hit them? It's because our voice is a weapon. To your dog, your raised voice isn't just a sound. It's a signal. Within that first 30 seconds, here's the concrete fact. According to a 2021 study, dogs experiencing negative emotional tones in human speech showed a measurable increase in the stress hormone cortisol that lasted for over an hour after the event ended. That single outburst can chemically alter their state for the rest of the day, and it can even impact how they learn in the future. But it's not just the chemical shock. It's the long-term structural damage you're doing to your relationship. Let's talk about what actually happens inside those floppy ears. Your dog's auditory system is incredibly sensitive. They can hear sounds 4 times farther away than we can. So when you shout, you aren't just being firm. You are, to them, creating a sonic boom. It's physically uncomfortable, but it's not just noise. It's confusion. Here's the psychological rub. We use words to communicate. Dogs use context. But researchers at the University of Sussex found that dogs don't process language the same way we do. Instead, they process the emotional valence of a sound. When you raise your voice in anger, the dog isn't thinking, "Oh, I chewed the shoe," and they are mad about the shoe. Instead, they are reading the threat. This is where we hit the controversy. You might think you are correcting behavior, but you might actually be creating trauma. In a study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science, findings suggest that dogs are highly attuned to human emotional cues, but they often misinterpret anger as a generalized threat to their safety, not a specific critique of their actions. So your dog doesn't think, "I'm in trouble." They think, "The alpha is enraged. I might be in danger." That subtle difference is the reason your dog might become anxious, hypervigilant, or even aggressive. A raised voice doesn't teach a lesson, it teaches fear. Think about that for a second. We've all seen the guilty look, right? The head down, the tail tucked. We think they know they were bad. But according to a study from Barnard College, that guilty look is actually a submissive response to your threatening posture and tone, not an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. It's a survival mechanism. They are trying to appease you because your voice is telling them you are about to bite. So what happens when you do this repeatedly? What is the cumulative effect? This is where the science gets unsettling. There is a concept called learned helplessness. If a dog is frequently exposed to loud, angry tones that they can't predict or control, they begin to shut down. They stop trying to avoid the punishment because they don't understand why it's happening. They just know it happens. That's not a well-behaved dog. That is a depressed dog. But let's rehook here. You might be thinking, well, I have to show them who's boss. This is where we get into the dominance theory myth and why yelling actually makes you look weaker in their eyes. You think screaming establishes dominance. But in canine social structures, loud, frantic behavior is actually the language of a panicked lower-ranking member. A truly secure leader is calm and quiet. They use presence and body language. So why do so many people shout? Because we are human and we are emotional. But the science says you are actually training your dog to fear you, not respect you. This creates a fragile bond. You might command them to sit, and they will sit because they are terrified of the potential backlash. The second you look away, they might bolt. They aren't loyal. They are hostages to your mood. And what about the dog who, instead of retreating, retaliates? The dog who growls back or snaps? Researchers have pointed out that dogs who are shouted at in a high-pitched, high-volume tone often misinterpret this as play or excitement at first, but if the context is obviously aggressive, it triggers a fight-or-flight response. In a dog that is already anxious or has a history of poor socialization, the fight switch flips. You think you're disciplining a biter, but you might be creating one. That's the dark side of raising your voice. You aren't communicating intent. You are shouting in a foreign language that sounds like a war cry. Let's look at the behavioral evidence. When you shout, the dog stops thinking. This isn't a metaphor. A dog's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and learning, essentially goes offline when they feel threat. Their brain hijacks their instinct. They aren't learning not to chew the shoe. They are learning that you are unpredictable. And an unpredictable owner is a dangerous owner. So if you have ever raised your voice, you are not alone. It is a natural reaction, but the science compels us to change. Your silence is louder than your anger to a dog's heart. But what if I told you that your reaction is actually causing you to see the dog differently? This is the kicker. The anger you feel isn't just harming the dog. It's blinding you. When you scream, you are are too focused on your own frustration to see that the dog is likely telling you something is wrong. Maybe they are sick. Maybe they are scared. By yelling, you disconnect from the partnership. You stop training and start fighting. So what's the solution? It's radical. It's hard. It's silence. When you feel the urge to shout, train yourself to step back. Walk out of the room. It takes immense self-control, but the research shows it is the only way to maintain a healthy line of communication. If you love your dog, the next time they mess up, don't reward the chaos with chaos. Reward them with calm. Remember, to your dog, your voice is your presence. And if your presence is threatening, you cease to be their protector. So next time you're about to shout, stop. Look at the dog. Look at the eyes. They are looking to you for safety, not judgment. If you want to understand the secret language of your dog and stop making these mistakes, then make sure to like and subscribe to Paw Theory. We dive into the psychology of your dog so you can give them the best life possible. What's one thing you wish you knew before you lost your temper with your dog? Let us know in the comments.